Awesome. All right. Thanks everybody for your time today. Appreciate you jumping on to our webinar. Today we are going to be discussing data insights with Google BigQuery, and it's business's new best friend. And the reason we talked about that is because dogs are our best friends, but Pet Food Experts is going to tell us today why Google BigQuery is man's new best friend. So our agenda today is going to focus on 3 areas. Particularly, we're going to do a brief overview of BigQuery, and then we're going to have pet food experts share their story of how they got a tremendous amount of business value by implementing BigQuery in their environment. And then we'll talk about how we get started, how you can get started working with Cloudbakers and addressing your business needs using Google BigQuery. The team today is myself. I am a pre-sales solution engineer working at Cloudbakers. I'm 100% focused on Google Cloud Platform. We have Barry Silver today and Chris Gouch from the Pet Food Experts team. They'll be diving into the solution. And we have our data practice lead, Claire Solling, who will discuss the architecture that Pet Food Experts implemented using the BigQuery platform. So what is the Google ecosystem? Google offers software and services across the entire spectrum of applications and management of applications. Starting at the top, G Suite and Android address the need for teams to have access to collaborative tools, mobility and devices that people can use for communications and collaboration across the board. Then go into the platform as a service section in the middle, connected business platforms with technologies such as Apigee for API management and Orbitera for e-commerce, and Google Maps to ensure that your applications, if they need location data, can get that location data accurately and quickly. Application development and management, as well as data analytics and machine learning, are supported on the Google Cloud Platform, so you can build and deploy applications and manage them very effectively in a highly scalable global approach using the Google Cloud Platform. And from an infrastructure perspective, Google Cloud Platform includes storage and networking and virtual machines, so you can deploy a full-fledged cloud solution across all different capabilities on Google Cloud. Tremendous platform, top to bottom cloud solution platform. So what is BigQuery? BigQuery falls into the data and analytics piece. BigQuery is a fully managed serverless data warehouse that enables scalable analysis over petabytes of data. It's a serverless software as a service model that supports querying using ANSI SQL, so it uses standard technologies, and it also has built-in machine learning capabilities. Let's go into a little more detail. The foundation for AI, BigQuery Machine Learning, or BigQuery ML, allows you to build and operationalize machine learning models directly within your data warehouse. And as I mentioned, you can use standard SQL to do that. You can train powerful models on structured data with machine learning engine and TensorFlow integration with BigQuery. As I specified, Google Cloud BigQuery supports standard SQL. So any DBA, anyone who's familiar with standard SQL can actually utilize it to interact with BigQuery, both from a querying perspective, but also to launch machine learning models and to use those models to do analysis and predictive analysis on your data. BigQuery supports standard SQL dialect, reducing the need to rewrite code and providing advanced features on SQL, constantly being updated as well. And they include a number of different ODBC and JDBC drivers to ensure compatibility with your current applications. BigQuery offers flexible pricing models. So for example, you can choose the model that best suits your needs. On-demand pricing lets you only pay for the storage and compute that you use, but flat rate pricing options enable high volume users or enterprises to choose stable monthly costs for queries and therefore have a predictable spend. You can also use flex slots up to 60 seconds each. So you can use predefined models and set up predefined pricing for your usage of BigQuery, so you know exactly how much you're going to spend. As I mentioned, it's a serverless application as well. So it's a serverless data warehouse that gives you the resources you need when you need them without the overhead of infrastructure or any system engineering needs. You don't have to manage it. It is fully managed by Google. Your team just needs to go in, put the data in there, and query it to take advantage of all the benefits of BigQuery. And finally, BigQuery offers real-time analytics with a high-speed streaming insertion API, so you can flow data into it ongoing or to batch load data into BigQuery. It's a powerful foundation for real-time analytics in your organization. So that's BigQuery in a nutshell. I'm going to introduce Barry and Chris at Pet Food Experts. So gentlemen, I hand the floor to you.
Thank you, Ed. Really appreciate it being here today. And I love the fact that we're going to be able to talk to a bunch of people on the call today as well. And, you know, both Chris and I had the absolute privilege of working for an amazing company that was started out as a pet store in 1936 and is now in its 4th generation, owned by the Baker family, and in 1989 became a distributor just by accident with a contract that they landed with IAMS. You know, so we've been going strong since '89. The business is a family-run business, and as many may know, that family-run businesses can certainly have their challenges when it's time to grow and expand and take those next evolutionary jumps. So about 2 years ago, I interviewed and landed this wonderful position here at Pet Food Experts. Bringing my 20+ years of distribution, you know, to the forefront at Pet Food Experts. And when I arrived at Pet Food Experts, I always describe it to say technology was in its infancy. It was a break-fix shop. That was it. Call IT, it's broken, and okay, we'll tell you to reboot the server or do something else. And it was just such a mishmash of components and servers within the environment. So, you know, my job was to really come in and take a look at everything that was going on and take Pet Food Experts from the mom and pop shop that it was and build an enterprise class solution and technology ecosystem. So when we first started out on this, and yet if you just want to slide ahead to the next one, thank you. There's a little illustration of, you know, Chris and I in our first, you know, sort of, you know, venture out into the land of trying to get this thing and, you know, straight. So we ran into a lot of challenges and pain points, as I said, with it being in such an infancy spot. You know, there was no single source of truth. There were multiple databases that were being used. SQL Server, Postgres, DB2, Snowflake, AWS. We had third-party contractors that were just absolutely shoving snowflakes and AWS down our throat because that's what they knew. That's what they're familiar with. So I don't care that you don't fit into the box. I'm going to push it to you anyway. We were already using the G Suite as our base, you know, email and you know, productivity suite over 365, Office 365, because that was being used prior to. And as a result of all of that stuff happening and all of those misaligned sort of data sources, there was such a problem with different departments pulling from different data sources and getting different results from those queries. One that comes into particular into mind for me was, you know, with our banking institution, there was a whole you know, query that was done. And unfortunately, there was one instance where the data didn't match what the banking had, right? So, and that was a direct result of what you see here, as we tried to illustrate that we had one on-prem DB2 system that was feeding SQL boxes, and those SQL boxes were just being hit by various people and getting different data and different results. And we couldn't manage the business, we couldn't grow the business, we couldn't scale the business to where we would like to see it go, right? So, you know, our goal overall is to try to hit $1 billion in sales annually. And in this environment, with this architecture as it stood when I first arrived, that was absolutely not going to be possible.
Yeah, and as you can see from this diagram, and basically what Barry has been saying is we had all these databases all over the places with a wrongfully implemented structure and a software that wasn't suited for us as a company. So everybody, if you notice this diagram, we started relying on our ERP system, which is being run off a historical DB2 system which just wasn't up to the capabilities to support this structure. So one of the bigger issues we were having with that was the performance of the ERP system. It wasn't designed to be hit like it was here. We were relying on it to run all these data sets and queries out of, and it was impacting the overall performance of that ERP system. So that ERP system is actually the lifeblood of pet food experts. Everything we do day in and day out in our warehouses and for all our orders and invoices and everything that go out on time happens in that ERP system. So by us hitting it constantly and putting such a strain on it, it was actually slowing everything down, and it created a single point of failure, which was a huge thing a huge problem we were facing. So if we bogged this down too much and we caused it to freeze, that's it. Our company was down and out until we could get everything back up and running. And not to mention, this is our production environment. So once this crashes, that's it. The other one of the challenges and pain points we had for this was now we're worried about the security for it. So we have all these data sources everywhere, different databases and different data sets. And we're managing the users to these databases and data sets on a database to database level. So we have multiple people inside multiple different databases, many to many relationships all over the place that we were trying to maintain. So it's just not advantageous for us to keep up that kind of security. We're also now creating all these ODBC connections from all these different data sources back to our lifeblood, which is the ERP system. And those users are having access based on whatever database they were given access because someone thought that was the case. And the other big challenge and pain point we had with our setup that you can see on the screen is that we had no point in time data at all. So we had no ability, once someone created those reports that Barry was talking about, the mismatch of data or whatever, we had no way of going back and saying, okay, what data were you looking at and why were you looking at it? The only way for us to do that was to pull database snapshots at certain intervals for our ERP system and have them backed up to a tape. And if we wanted to go back and see that data again, we had to get out the tape, load it into its own instance, and then we'd get access to it, which isn't advantageous for anybody involved. So yeah, outside of that, it was bringing down data sheets into Excel to try to manipulate that way. So we just had some really bad experiences and a lot of pain points. And yeah, I guess Barry's gonna take it away with the next section.
Yeah, so, and I think what Chris was saying certainly represents the picture that we put up front. You know, Chris begging for help out in the middle of the water, all the ore floating away. I'm trying to grab for him as well. And, you know, that was our life just summed up into one picture, really. So what we set out was we set a goal and we said, okay, listen, if we're going to take this enterprise class business to where it needs to be, then we need to create a reliable, integrated source of truth to unveil deeper insights into our business while allowing us to scale effortlessly into the future, right? So we also wanted a standalone system, something that was not a single point of failure, that, you know, allowed us to hit it anytime we wanted to, and certainly something that was scalable from our e-commerce development to our mobile application development to our future states of AI and BI. We needed something to really hit all four of these particular channels. And, you know, and that's when we reached out to Cloudbakers and we said, listen, we need help with this. This is not something that we can really do with the size of our IT department. We're a department of 10, and we're trying to keep, you know, a multi, you know, I won't say the figure of what we're doing in sales. We're very successful, and trying to keep an organization of our size of about 500 people alive with 10 people it can be challenging at times. So that's when we reached out to Cloudbakers and we reached out to see what solution they had for us. And I think, there we go, yes. Excellent. And certainly Claire jumped on and you know, I guess I'll introduce Claire.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, so I'm a Cloudbaker. I was one of the data engineers on this project. And when we got started, you know, we were working with Barry and Chris, and they told us about all of the challenges they were facing. They told us about the goals that they had for their data warehouse, you know, as a service. And we came up with an initial design that we did a couple of iterations on, and this is ultimately where we landed. So I realize there's a lot going on in this diagram, so I'll just start on the left here. You know, we were integrating a number of different data sources. The ETL, or extract, transform, and load workloads that we designed were Python-based scripts that actually attached to those source systems and were deployed on Google Kubernetes engine. So they were containerized processes that were deployed on a cluster. They're managed using the Kubernetes Cron scheduler. This is very advantageous for a couple of reasons. One, it's fairly lightweight. You know, this is not a huge cluster that's managing all these workloads. There's also a certain amount of flexibility associated with designing it this way. Since these workloads are containerized, you know, Pet Foods really has the option to move them anywhere that supports Docker containers, which is a lot of different places these days. These Python scripts load from the source systems and store the data initially in a staging environment in cloud storage. This is Google's object store, and the rationale for doing so is twofold. So one, cloud storage has optimized uploads into BigQuery. And two, the breaking point in these end-to-end pipelines is often where you go from having unstructured data, so data you're reading from your source system, which may or may not be structured in a certain way, into Google BigQuery, which is a structured data source. So it's got schema associated with it. And if your source schema changes in sort of unpredicted ways and you're landing your data directly into BigQuery, sometimes that can break. And if you're working with operational systems, you know, Chris and Barry really emphasized to us, look, like for our ERP, we run our business on it, we can't be bogging it down. We don't want to go back to those source systems and recreate them for data that we've already obtained. So landing them in cloud storage initially allows us to have more flexibility in how we're uploading them into BigQuery. If we find that for whatever reason that there is a breaking point there, the scheme has changed or something like that, we can fix that without having to go back to the originating systems. You know, being mindful of your operational systems and how you're pulling from them is a really important thing to consider, not just for Pet Foods, but for any company that's trying to stand up a data warehouse. You know, operational systems may not directly serve your customers. They may just, you know, slowing them down may just annoy your coworkers, but you know, directly or indirectly, they can impact your customer experience in a negative way, and that's something that you definitely don't want to happen. Another feature that we added here, actually to mitigate that, was a configuration setup in Google Data Store. So it didn't have to be Data Store, it probably could have been a couple of other options, but this config allows Chris to manage which tables the ETL workloads are pulling from and on what frequency. So if he's, you know, working day to day and he finds that for whatever reason Infor is negatively being impacted by any of these processes, he has the option to go in, update the config without having to go back to Cloudbakers or go through a process where he's trying to get us to update the systems. It's all fully within Pet Foods' control. Finally, the data is loaded into Google BigQuery, and you know, Ed already touched on this, but BigQuery is really just a really awesome product. It's massively parallel processing. It's columnar data store, so it scales up really well. It's also really cost effective, even at a small scale. So if you're just getting started, you know, it's kind of a pay-as-you-go pricing. So you can ramp up as needed without having to pay ahead for a tier, like try and figure out how much you're going to use and pick a right size. It's kind of right-sized automatically. Another real benefit to using BigQuery, and especially in conjunction with this cloud storage staging, is that we were able to actually capture snapshots in time. So that challenge Chris mentioned, or that issue that they were facing, where it's like, look, we don't really understand how this data is changing over time, is actually solved using this architecture. Because BigQuery is columnar, it's append-only preferred, and so Pet Foods has the option for actually seeing that historical trends over time, if it's relevant to whatever queries they're doing, or they can consolidate their data by ingestion time and get like an actual current view of the source system. Finally, it's hooked up to Tableau currently, and that was the reporting system at the time. So, if you do have a BI tool in place, BigQuery is reported by many of the market leaders. And so it's just, it made sense. It was something that they could pop into place and continue to use their other systems without having to revamp how they were doing the reporting as a whole.
So after all this, what results did we see or gain as a company for utilizing BigQuery and the GCP platform? So the first thing we got is we got the unification of all our data in one place for the first time since Barry was explaining that spaghetti monster of data we had before. It allows us to have that single point of contact for all our reporting and analytics. And more importantly, it gives us a single source of truth. Of verified data. So now our analysts and they come in looking for data to run these reports. They know when they get here, they're getting all the data. They don't have to worry about running to database A, B, and pulling all these different tables together. It's all there for them. They're also getting verified data that they know is accurate and true. And then they're also getting formatted data for what they need to run their report. So there's a little less work that they're having to do on their end. The next big thing we saw from switching to this is our performance increase. And for specifically our data extractions to get those data sets out for people to use for reporting. So an example Barry and I like to talk about a lot is we had a query or an extract that we were running out of the ERP system. It's called the catalog query. When we were running it on this ERP system, this thing would take us a staggering 10 hours to complete, which is insane. If trying to schedule that with a company like ours that runs around the clock in multiple time zones, we always have someone in there using that. So it's not like we can dedicate all those resources to getting that to run. And then when it is running, it's bogging the system down. When we switched over to BigQuery, we're able to run this query that supports 75%, if not more, of our reports in a staggering 30 seconds. That's an insane time save. We're able to run it and get deeper insight because our analysts are now getting this on a higher frequency to be able to get at this data. It's basically on-demand data at this point for them. So they're able to dive down at those metrics and notice different nuances in the data instead of sitting around waiting for stuff to complete. Another aspect of this is we also have point-in-time data now, which Claire mentioned. This gives us the ability to look back and see any of our data structure and what it was at any given point in time. So specifically, if you want to do time-related analysis over your data, it's perfect for that. Also, even for minute things like QA, if someone built a report on July 1st, and then today you notice that something might be off, that this data set you're using that you pulled in, you can actually just set the date parameter inside the warehouse to pull out all the data that person saw the day they pulled that report. And then moving into the future with that deeper insight, we can actually start looking at different things and not just what the data means itself, but actually looking at the physical data and the way it's transforming. And that's going to lead us into AI and stuff with this point in time. Another big thing we hit is the increased security. Now that we have this one point of contact for our data, we can manage all the users and who has access to what from one location instead of having to worry about monitoring all these smaller databases all over the place. So moving forward, outside of BigQuery, what else would we get from benefit from using the GCP platform? So we started to switch over to a complete cloud platform. And at this point, we are. We've moved all our old databases up there. And now moving forward, we're actually using cloud-based databases for our transactional databases for all the back end of our new applications we're building, our web apps, anything like that. And it's easy to set up. We just spin up, it's like a point and click to set up a Postgres instance in the cloud. And it allows easy access for any developers that need to work on it. And at the same time, now that it's in GCP, we can easily port that data from those applications back over to BigQuery really simply. So we can get more analysis and analytics on those data points as well. And then on top of that, we also get a huge access to an array of applications that Ed mentioned earlier, like Kubernetes, the AI platforms, PubSub, just to name a few, and the vast API library that they have available.
Yeah, Chris, I think it's also important too, like just to talk about, the ease of use too, right? So, as we went into the system, not really knowing what we were going to encounter, we found that it was actually very easy, user-friendly. The UX, UI piece of it was super easy to navigate. Anyone who's gone into AWS before you know, it's like, you know, a million links on the page at one point, you know, where you're trying to go, okay, is it here? Is it here? Is it here? This is so intuitive. It was so super user friendly. We had a third-party offshore development team working on our e-commerce platform. They were trying to shove AWS down our throat. I was like, no way. I said, you're building it on GCP. And the developer at that point was like, all right, I'll take a look at it. You know, he's a fellow over in Belfast. And he comes back 2 days later. He's like, I got it. That was like the easiest thing to do. I'm good as gold, man. So it was really cool. And he's now further gone for his GCP certifications, architecture. So he's in full love with the platform as well. So it's not just us, it's just people we're introducing it to for the first time are falling in love with it. So it really aligned with all of our goals, our directives, our challenges. It just aligns so nicely. I can't stress that enough. You know, and then I think the other piece of it, right? So in the chair that I sit in, you know, I think is a little bit, you know, obviously different than Chris's. Chris is in the weeds. He's in the technical, the details, the architecture pieces of it. You know, I have to answer to somebody, and I'm sure everybody who's a C-level person, you know, wants to see these kind of numbers, right? So, you know, certainly an 80% reduction in the upfront development cost, which is awesome. And certainly the reductions on the operating cost. I mean, the two huge important factors, right? 60%. If you're going to the CFO with something like this, they're dancing all day long. So, you know, it's black and white, or in this case, blue and gray. So, you know, that's our story. And I'm awesome. It's just an awesome story, and I'm so happy that we're able to share it with you guys.
So Chris and Barry, thank you guys so much for sharing that story. Love to hear that. You guys are great at presenting kind of the challenges that you went through. Before we go to the next step in terms of how to get started, I wanted to ask you one more question. You know, Chris brought up a lot of the things in terms of tools and technologies that you get now on GCP. What's next? What's next for pet food experts? What's on your roadmap going forward?
Sure. I think we had it on the slide in the original architecture, which was we're kind of tied into Tableau. So again, that's something when I arrived at Pet Food Experts had just gone to Tableau as a BI tool. Just recently, Ed, we sat down and we did a demo with Looker. And I couldn't believe, I was just impressed. Top to bottom, I'm getting ready to throw Tableau out, as a matter of fact, because of it. So, and I'll tell you why. In this market right now, so we're in the Northeast, you know, Rhode Island, Massachusetts area, right on the border. Talent is very hard to come by, especially Tableau development, skill sets. We're paying an absolute premium for them. And if I was to try to give somebody in my environment who what I would call an advanced Excel user, you know, and just say, hey, go build this dashboard in Tableau, you just can't do it. That user cannot do it. So everything is left, obviously, to our department. So with that said, what I'm looking for is self-service data. What was the best way that I could do that and empower those people who are those special users, those power users within the environment? They know our enterprise inside out. They know what they want to run. They know what the results they want to look at. And if we could codify that into a means by which is all they have to do is drag and drop and then drag in some graphics, boom, done, simple, easy. And that's what we're after, right? And then the more complex, intricate stuff is really left for our group, is to say, okay, well, we want to start, you know, getting the cost to serve model fine-tuned. Well, the power user is not going to be able to do that, you know, in any situation or any platform. That's for your analysts, right? Those are for your developers to go in, get that data, and then chew that data down to its very minute bit and byte, and get the results for the business. So, you know, that's really where we're headed, Ed. You know, and I'm actually excited to do that because I'm also looking at using Looker and front-ending a lot of data from our customers as well. So pushing out that self-service data model to our customers. I can't do that on Tableau. It's just not going to happen. But if I can do that, put it in a little widget and then call it a day and the customers can run their own reports, well, everybody's happy.
That is so great. I really love the vision that you guys have. You guys are cutting edge, and we love working with you. So how to get started? Cloudbakers is a full-service Google company. We will do everything from G Suite implementations. If you're interested in G Suite, we're happy to demonstrate the product set and kind of go through it with you. Barry mentioned Looker. We can set up a trial with Looker to do visualizations and data analytics. Cloudbakers is a Google certified as well as a Looker certified professional partner with Google. So we have the skill set to implement Looker and implement this entire pipeline as Barry and Chris described. The pipelines that we built for them are very complex, and it made their lives easier. So Cloudbakers is happy to help. And we also have a program called CloudOps, which helps us manage operations for you in the cloud. We can kind of do a staff augmentation approach where we help your company become more scalable in the cloud. So why Cloudbakers? Again, we are a Google Premier partner. We have a certified team. We have about 75 or 80 now people that are certified in our organization across G Suite and Google Cloud Platform. We have a 98% plus client retention rate. So customers enjoy working with us and find a lot of value in what Cloudbakers offers. And we are a solution-focused organization. We're here to help you solve problems for your business and really achieve value with the Google Cloud Platform. So if you need some help from Cloudbakers, here's my contact information. You can reach out directly at any time. We'd be happy to set up a demonstration, a conference call, anything you want to learn more about what you can do on GCP. And again, thank you all for your time today. Really appreciate you jumping in. Barry, Chris, Claire, thank you as well for your presentation today. You guys were awesome.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
All right. I know we're over time a little bit, but if there are any questions that the audience has, feel free to come off mute, ask that virtually, or if you feel more comfortable chatting, feel free to chat in the window too. But we'll stand just for a couple minutes to answer any questions you may have.
Do we have theme music we could play?
Let me work on it. Hold on.
Hey, one thing I'll add while we're waiting on this is if you're looking to get started, Google, I'm Kyle Merritt, I work for Google. I'm our partner sales manager representing our Northeast business. If you're looking to get started and you're curious, how do you trial this? We also have programs where we will sponsor and pay for a trial for you to go out and explore BigQuery, to get your hands on it, to maybe explore what Looker and BigQuery look like together. So if you're curious about how to get started, we have programs that we package together with Cloudbakers to help jumpstart that process for you.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate you adding that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Question. Yeah, this is something that I received quite a bit of questions about leading up to the event. Is for people that are in a multi-cloud environment, specifically within AWS, how does that integrate if you want to continue to use AWS and take advantage of the benefits of BigQuery? How does that integrate with BigQuery, and why would you want to do that?
Claire, do you want to go with that one?
I can. So it's a great question. And I'm trying to make sure that the answer is not super long-winded. So there's a couple of different ways that you could go multi-cloud with BigQuery. And in general, Google, I think, is their strategy is to enable multi-cloud systems. So it's something they prioritize in their technology and their product development. One really cool tool that just came out is Bigquery Omni, which allows you to use a unified interface. You're still using the BigQuery query engine and file system, but what it does is it allows you to stand up a sort of a containerized version of that engine in your AWS environment. So you can have data in Google, you can have data in AWS. You don't actually have to transfer the data over in order to use BigQuery. You can have BigQuery as kind of this unified layer on top of themselves, which I think is really powerful. Outside of that, generally in sort of a centralized data warehouse project, you want to actually move your data to the warehouse. In order to do that, there's a number of different ETL tools. You could do custom ETL. You could use tools like the Google Cloud Storage Transfer Service, which is an optimized service that transfers data from AWS's object store into GCS. But in general, there's just a bunch of different ways that you could accomplish that and still be successful. But if you want your data to live in AWS, you have to use BigQuery Omni at this point.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire.
Okay.
All right, unless there are any other questions, I want to thank our presenters today and our audience, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and we really appreciate it. Feel free to reach out. Cloudbakers is here to help.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.